According to Lionsgate, there are plans to make a John Wick video game, and it's already in development. Hopefully it will be good. The source material does lend itself well to a video game. Considering the acclaim and success of the fourth movie, it's pretty safe to say that the John Wick franchise has officially ingrained itself into modern-day pop culture, with the man himself being a fictional icon. I would even make the argument that John Wick is the most consistent movie franchise of all time, where all four of the movies are fantastic. Some debate as to which is the best one. John Wick is a character who strikes the perfect balance of feeling unstoppable, yet needing to think and strategize his way out of difficult situations. At the same time, he can be hurt and injured if the opposing force is large enough, well armed, and smart enough to do damage. Mirroring video games, many games do give you that power fantasy where you do feel invincible, yet you're vulnerable enough to the point where carelessness leads to a game over. Above all else, John Wick feels satisfying. A sense of fulfillment is reached once John has killed the guy who killed his dog, kills the guy who has a bounty on his head, and it's pleasing for us as an audience to watch him take down the high table. That can often mirror a video game once you've completed the level, and especially once you defeat a boss. In this video, I wanted to talk about a few video games where you feel like John Wick, a borderline invincible man who can easily defeat a small army of henchmen, usually with a gun. Still, melee and improvised weapons are also viable. The first game is the one that actually inspired the Dragon's Breath round scene in John Wick 4. The Hong Kong Massacre is a top-down shooter with the developers stating that old John Woo movies were the inspiration. From personal experience, the only John Woo movies I've ever seen are Mission Impossible 2 and Face Off, which are more bombastic and have a big emphasis on the result rather than methodology and strategy. However, considering you are just an individual with a gun sweeping and murdering an entire building's worth of people, that's pretty akin to John Wick. The objective is to sweep and kill everyone in a single level. They die in one bullet, but so do you. So the plan is to die over and over again as to figure out what the perfect route is in the level. Whilst dying in a single bullet does make you seem fragile, that is offset by the bullet time and dodge mechanic. You can slow down time and dodge dive to not get hit. Those two mechanics help even the odds, and once you do complete a level, it honestly does feel like one of the action scenes from the movies. The level of style and flamboyancy the game offers does correlate with the enjoyment of the game. If you were to take the risky approach and dive headfirst into the enemies, you would enjoy the game more than if you were to pick your shots and take your time. Whilst John Wick never aims to look cool, he often does massacre his way through different buildings and locations and moves at a relatively fast pace. Above everything else, something is so fulfilling about completing an entire level in a singular, uninterrupted flow where you're just an unstoppable wrecking ball of death. Sticking with games with a bullet time mechanic, let's talk about a strategic FPS. I'm talking about
Superhot. Superhot.
Superhot was developed by a group simply known as the Superhot team. Not the most creative name, but hey, they do get the point across. Unlike other shooters, Superhot does not give you the same power fantasy as you die in one bullet. Instead, there's a bigger emphasis on strategy and thinking of a plan to defeat all the enemies in a single level. Time only moves when you move, so any action you take will cause the enemies to move and counterattack. I would argue that it's practically a strategy game disguised as an FPS. For every action you take, the opposition will move, strike, and shoot you as a response. To put it simply, defense is just as important as offense. Mirroring John Wick, sure, he does seem invincible, but that's only because he often plans and strategizes before he executes. The main example I can think of in the movies is that in the first John Wick, he talks to the bodyguard and says he lost weight.
Mr. Wick, ты похудел. 20 килограммов. Да.
60 pounds is equivalent to 27 kilos, and coincidentally enough, there's around 27 security guards in the nightclub. The game also offers a fair amount of replayability as there are challenges and endless arenas that again force you to think and strategize. There are modes where you can only melee and others where you only have one bullet to work with, but remember, time only moves when you move. The slowdown mechanic does help level the playing field and give you a power fantasy, even if it's relatively small compared to John Wick and other games. With all the focus on bullet time mechanics, I need to go back to the granddaddy of bullet time in video games. I need to talk about I'll mostly be focusing on Max Payne 2 and 3 as the first one has some technical issues on PC. Max Payne 2 out of the trilogy gives you the biggest power fantasy. The bullet time resource is higher and there are more guns in the inventory. In addition, bullet time increases in amount and slowdown effect with each successive kill. This mechanic encourages fast-paced gameplay and throws caution to the wind, much like John Wick killing someone on continental grounds and jumping out of a three-story window. And again, going back to the power fantasy, Max Payne 2 does make the player feel invincible in some cases. This can be best exemplified in the amount of painkillers the game gives you, allowing you to take the more reckless and damaging approach and have enough medicine to multi-mitigate all damage. Max Payne 3, on the other hand, whilst not giving you the same power fantasy, can mirror the Baba Yaga through its strategic elements and precise shooting. Thanks to the pinpoint reticle, there's a bigger emphasis on being accurate and landing headshots. In addition, you can only have a sidearm and long gun on you, so there's a bigger emphasis on resource management and having the right gun for the situation. John Wick is selective with the guns he chooses, such as him not being fond of the M1911 for only having 7 rounds in the third movie. In addition, he doesn't spray and pray, he goes for headshots, and his accuracy in the first 3 movies is 72.6%. In addition, unlike Max Payne 1 and 2, there are scripted action set pieces which can be pretty enjoyable, such as the helicopter shootout. That helps give Max Payne 3 a cinematic flair that Rockstar seems to have a specialty for. Whilst Max Payne 3 is the most polarizing of the trilogy, if you go with the mindset that there's a bigger emphasis on being in cover and picking your shots, then it's a pretty good game. In fact, it has enough similarities to John Wick where people do put John Wick mods into the game. It's kind of weird that this video just turned into free advertisement for games with a bullet time mechanic. Ironically enough, Keanu Reeves does have a history of that. Going back to that John Wick game, it needs to strike a good balance between feeling invincible and strategizing your way out of sticky situations. The game should feel relatively fast-paced, but at the same time should reward you for good accuracy and landing headshots. And hopefully, the developers will take a page or two from the movie tie-in LEGO games, as those games are pretty damn good if I do say so myself. This is Zach, not Zach, signing off. Please remember to like, favorite, and subscribe.